Kailey, I mean, we know the president is always open to the art of the deal. What exactly did he mean by phenomenal?
Well, that, I guess, is up to interpretation, and probably no one can answer that question except for President Trump himself, Romaine. But this does run a bit counter to the messaging we were getting from those in the White House and his administration about whether or not this was really just the opening of a negotiation. The White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt earlier today described these tariffs as non-negotiable. The president, though, seems to be suggesting otherwise, keeping in mind that while the tariffs were announced yesterday, they have not yet gone into effect. That 10% base rate doesn't go into effect until Saturday, and it's next week on April 9th that the reciprocal tariffs are set to go into effect, which many political strategists and others I spoke with yesterday indicated to them means that the White House is intending to leave some room for deal making here before all of these levies ultimately kick in. And we've previously, of course, had the expression from the White House press secretary that President Trump is always willing to take a phone call from other leaders and always willing to make a deal. I would note that while he is talking about being open to negotiation on the tariffs already announced, he also told reporters that more tariffs on sectors could be coming, that he is still looking specifically at pharmaceuticals and semiconductors. He also noted that he spoke to automaker executives today, which raises the question as to whether or not they're still looking for carve-outs or exemptions on the auto tariffs that have gone into effect as of today, beginning to be collected. And one note on the president's response to the market action today, Romaine, he had earlier said things were going very well. He seems to have amended it a little bit. He says the market reaction to tariffs was expected. And one thing he likes that he saw today, interest rates coming down, he says.
OK, well, I mean, not to pour water on that, Kailey, but they're coming down for kind of the wrong reasons. And that's because of a lot of the economic anxiety out there. And I am curious. I mean, we've heard from Scott Bessent on this network earlier today. We heard them last night on your show. We heard from Howard Lutnick and a few other administration officials. And I know I believe you're scheduled to speak to the governor of New York a little bit later in your program here. This now becomes an economic story, not just at the federal level, at the global level, but really on a state and local level as well.
Absolutely. Governor Hochul has been out front talking about these tariffs as being essentially a tax hike on the people of New York. She suggests this could cost families $6,000 more per year. The question really is, what power does she have as governor, or does anyone outside of the president, if Congress is not going to act, have to actually counter this? On that note, I would note that you are seeing some mixed reaction in Congress today with some legislative efforts to perhaps rein in the president's control when it comes to tariffs, keeping in mind this is not supposed to be power assigned to the executive. It's actually the Article 1 authority of Congress to deal with levies that are collected in matters of trade. So we'll be watching for developments on that front. In the meantime, we do understand these conversations are likely to still be taking place outside of the U.S. as countries are also calibrating their responses, both how they will react domestically, but also what they may do to counter the United States and whether or not retaliatory tariffs will be put into place. On one country in particular I want to mention as well that Romaine, President Trump was talking about on Air Force One is China. He reiterated once again that he would consider tariff relief on China in exchange for a deal on TikTok, keeping in mind that deadline is coming up on Saturday.